The same company that brought you Overwatch 2 without any PvE modes that they promised. The company that shocked the world with scandals including the stolen breast milk incident. The company that made one of the worst remakes known to the gaming world from one of the most cherished franchises ever. The company that released World of Warcraft Shadowlands and ruined World of Warcraft Classic with the World of Warcraft token? Ugh, need I say more? Who in their right mind would purchase the $70 game Diablo 4? A game where the namesake of a franchise doesn't even make an appearance? Is this game any good at all? Let's talk about that. My name is Llamas. I like to play games. Many kinds of games. Diablo 3 is a game I have sunk thousands of hours into, grinding away at the seasons trying to get that new shiniest piece of gear to show other people that I meant business on a virtual ladder board. You can say that I'm a fan of the franchise. Wait, no. Maybe an enjoyer of the franchise is more accurate. I enjoy the Diablo franchise, and I knew that I was just going to have to buy this game, even though I didn't like what was going on around the release of the game and the company's history of messing things up. But boy, oh boy, do I love funding Bobby's yachts. So I shelled out that $70 and didn't look back. Loading up this billion gigabyte game, I came to a realization. My favorite class from D3 wasn't even in the game. Why did I even purchase this game? Good thing I didn't shell out that $20 extra just to play the game a few days earlier like everyone else. So before we get into the actual review, why don't you click that like and subscribe button? And no, who am I kidding? Let's just get into it. By the way, there will be slight spoilers here and there, so, don't say I didn't warn you. All right, this review is going to be cut into 3 different sections, ones that I think are well defined in the game and intended by the developers for you to grind your way through. We have the early game, the mid game, the end game, and of course, everything else that doesn't fall in those categories. I will define the early game as World Tier 1 through 2. Basically the story of the game. Starting up the game, you'll have to make a hard decision of choosing your class, which world tier to start with, and if you want to do it softcore or hardcore. The hardcore one is the easiest, so let's talk about that one. Not until Blizzard stops running the game off the classic WoW servers, so I stop DCing and rubber banding every time I encounter someone else. I mean, how hard is it to get a good freaking server on launch these days? So I went softcore, usual. The class selection was pretty hard since they didn't have my favorite class in the game, but you get the choices between Barbarian, Necromancer, Rogue, Druid, and Sorcerer. I'm not bald, so I did not go Barb, and instead I went with Rogue, trying to get that little taste of pure bliss that is the Monk. Give me my Monk back, Blizzard. I also chose World Tier 2 because why not? Tier 1 is too easy and boring as shit, so I might as well just play in Tier 2. The game starts off really slow, only giving you a few abilities until you hit in the the teens of leveling when you can actually start branching off and start making different builds. But once you get to this point, though, it does make everything a lot easier. I would recommend that if you're looking for a harder time and not looking to breeze through the mid/early game of the Diablo 4, just make your own build. Just make your own build until you get your ass handed to you, and then change it. I promise you will have way more fun. Once you get into the higher levels, especially by level 50, the gameplay smooths out considerably, and you're able to do almost anything with your skill builds at this point of the game. Speaking of skill builds, they are far superior to anything I've seen Blizzard do. So let's go ahead and just take this moment to savor it. Blizzard did something amazing. And that's all they deserve. The skill builds are honestly really interesting and something that looks really scary before you actually dive into it and read everything. Of course, you don't want to read everything, so you'll just go look up a guide, but that's okay, Once you get used to it, building the build just feels really good until you see a bald barbarian in the overworld just go spin and one-shot everything. You know who you are. And then you go feel sad, copy a build online, and then go about your day like nothing happened. Moving on. The voice acting and sound design is something I hear everyone talk about when mentioning good things about this game. I mean, it's amazing. If you like hearing things, then this game is for you. And of course, the cutscenes were really good, even though there weren't as many as I thought there would be, and most of them do have to do with the main story. So if you want to see those, you do have to play the game. The story is good, honestly, better than I thought it would have been, since all we were doing was chasing mommy, I mean Lilith, around and missing her at literally every point except for the final scene where we beat her to the final place, you know what I'm saying? Huge shocker. I think they did their best with what they had since they had killed off many of the characters in the previous game and kind of wrote themselves into a corner with Diablo. The ending was definitely the worst part of the overall story. Like, I know they liked their expansions, but did they really have to set up an expansion just like right off the bat, just right there? They just set it up. Man, leveling has always been an important part of the Diablo franchise. You know, unless it's season 243 of Diablo 3 and you just can't bring yourself to do it again. But your buddy says he'll boost you. So you just hop in that boost lobby and you just get to play the game eventually after a couple hours, you know. Leveling 1 to 50 was actually what I consider the early game in World Tier 1 and World Tier 2. This is when leveling feels most rewarding. You get skill points every time you level, and it doesn't take very long to level at all. The main story will only get you so far, so you'll have to grind other things before you're able to leave the early game of Diablo 4. Overall, the early game was much better than I expected it to be when playing a Diablo game. I remember the Diablo 3's early game being much worse than this. I enjoyed my time leveling from 1 to 50 and everything in between. That's saying something. The story might not be the best, but it's serviceable. The gameplay was smooth when you weren't lagging out of your mind. And the abilities all do good and they all sound great. It's just that simple. I was having fun, and that's really what matters in video games these days. Are you playing? Are you having a fun time? But, you know, that happiness was brought to a swift end once I dove first into the mid game of Diablo 4 after I defeated the first capstone dungeon. All right. This isn't my first time around the block. I've done many grinds throughout my time of playing video games, many dungeon grinds, many monsters killed, just to reach the highest level in some RPG game. But the mid game of Diablo 4 just isn't my favorite, and I found myself trying to get out of it faster and faster with each passing hour. Remember when I said leveling experience was fun, and the experience needed to level up was actually in a really good spot? Forget about that. Now, instead of maybe taking, 15, 20 minutes to level during the early game. Now we're talking hours of pure grinding just to level up. Thankfully, they give you 3 skill points per level and 1 at the end. So, so 4 total. But, when you're almost level 60 and you aren't halfway in terms of hitting the max level and overall XP, it just feels like you're climbing a mountain at that point. Oh, by the way, I think level 80 is the halfway point before they nerfed all the XP values, so we'll see what that goes to. Before playing for an hour or two, you can see the actual progress in your character. Now all you see is this blue bar slightly going up, and the same 1 or 5 legendaries dropping, since the legendary drop rates at this point of the game are not that good. I wouldn't be so hard on this section if the best way to level wasn't so freaking boring. Dungeon grinding solo is rather boring, and I'm sure if you have 3 buddies to play with, to speed things along, get you the extra P, kill things a little bit faster, it might be a lot more fun. But I did it all solo, and it was a painful grind. Most of them suck. They're all almost exactly the same, with many of them following this pattern. Go kill everyone in the level. Once you've done that, go kill everyone in the level. Once you've done that, go collect 2 things and put them on the thing in the middle of the map. Wait, we trapped you. Now kill the final boss. And that's pretty much all of them. That's how almost all of them boil down in like some kind of order, some similar to that. And on your 6th one, just to level up from 59 to 60, it just wears down on a man. The next tier is for level 70s and above, so you pretty much just have to grind it out so you don't get one shot and have a decent time in the final world tier. This is something I wasn't a big fan of when playing the game. I enjoyed in D3 where most of the world tiers were scaled all the way down to level 1, and you had like 6 to choose from right off the bat. But, I understand why they did that and what they're trying to do here. I just wish you could unlock World Tier 4 earlier, because it feels like World Tier 3 is just a punishment at this point. The gameplay is mostly the same at this point. You have your build that you looked up and you follow it. It usually is pretty good because you're just killing everything around you. Just fun, killing stuff. Fun, There are a few bonuses to this point in the game. This is where the world events typically start happening and you get to join other players and defeating them. The Hell Tides are my favorite portion of the open world, always online multiplayer game that happens to be the norm these days. You get to go around killing everything for a different temporary currency that you can just gamba away on chests to get gear. Typically, this is a good way to get some gear, and it's fun running around killing things, but you still have the chances of not getting gear from the chest, which I found extremely stupid. If you die, you lose like half your currency, which is annoying, so that's like another reason for not skipping the world tier at a lower level when you could just get randomly just get one shot. The other new world event is the Legion events. These are what the name suggests, a legion of mobs that you have to kill within a time limit to hit the final boss with a bunch of other sweaty nerds around you. These are usually more fun than we get out of them. I mean, I've done a dozen of those and maybe received like 1 legendary. It was really sad, honestly. But overall fun, but not worth the reward. So I'd only do them a couple times, unless you really enjoy them. The world bosses are actually interesting. I've faced a few of them. I haven't faced all of them yet, but They're better than most bosses in the game, even though they did copy one of them just from a story boss. They're massive, and it forces your camera way out so you can see the entire thing, which was really annoying since, you've been playing in the one camera position your entire time. But these are fun. You get to do some decent gear and rewards, and you get to do it with a bunch of other people. So always fun. All of these world events are fun, but you can't participate in them if you freaking miss them. Some of them have like 5-minute pre-timers on the map before they start, and if you don't make it in time, they just put you on a different layer that doesn't have it happening anymore. When a dungeon can take up to 15 minutes, depending on which one, you just missed the event. I wish they would notify you whenever a world event was happening or about to happen, or have them always on the map so you can check in advance when something is going to happen so you don't miss them. I just missed way too many of these when I was trying to do my dungeon grinding, and it was really, really annoying. Overall, the mid-game Diablo 4 was not my favorite, and I fully expect this is where the casual player will go to die. This is something that they're going to have to address in later seasons of the game, and if you spend this much time grinding to get to the end game, it will be a large barrier to having more people play the game at a good rate. If you have enough free time or know how to get out of this tier as fast as possible, you'll make it to the end game. Again, you have to defeat a capstone dungeon, and all the capstone dungeons are really good. They add something to the game that Diablo 3 honestly really needed. Being able to do them at any level is also really nice. I went in severely underleveled, and it was some of the most fun I had in Diablo 4. Moving into the game, Tier 4, or essentially level 70 to 100, there isn't much more to do. Now, you are able to receive the highest level of gear drops in the game, but you do need to get, I think they said level 85, then you can actually start getting the highest level legendaries. So you're able to start finally building your final build. If the main portion of the game is to receive loot and build a character, why do they make it so hard to change anything in your build? Recently, World of Warcraft has made it so easy to switch anything in your build, but Diablo makes it incredibly hard just to change anything. Copious amounts of gold. No saved sets you can switch to. Having to go through multiple trees just to change everything about a build, it really just punishes a player. It can take forever just to change something. The stash isn't nearly as good as the stash in D3, one of the few downgrades from D3. There aren't many tabs, and the sorting feature could be greatly improved for a game coming out in 2023. If I have to save so many legendaries, aspects, potions, gems, everything throughout the game, I need more inventory space. This is something that they already said they're going to fix, and hopefully it has by the time you get your hands on the game if you're watching this for a review. With the final portion of the game, you can finish all your renown rewards. These are an amazing addition to the game that really help you feel like you're doing more than just farming legendary items. And after you finish those one-time farms, it's up. That's it. It's time to push up to the level 100 Nightmare difficulty dungeons with increasing difficulty. This reminds me so much of Diablo 3's endgame, but it eventually has a cap until the seasons arrive to save the game. Other than that, rinse and repeat until you get bored and move on to the next hot game coming out in the next few months. Once they release the seasons and add more things here or there, the end game is truly just a giant time sink. I don't like PvP like a freaking nerd, so I have no clue about it. I really wish, you couldn't get attacked unless you're PvP flagged, like in WoW. But, they made it so you can just get, if somebody else is PvP flagged, you can attack whoever as long as you're in the PvP zone. I think it's really dumb. But especially when you have to go there to collect certain things. It's just annoying. There are technical issues from the game for sure. I have a 4080, an i7 13700K, and the game would stutter whenever I open the map or character screen on ultra settings. I would never get frame drops outside of these, which is super weird. But even when turning on DLSS and the frame generation, it just never went away until I turned the graphics to high, and then it never happened again. So it has to be something with the ultra option settings, and it was rather annoying since I was running the game at over 144 FPS otherwise. The rubber banding wasn't as bad as in the beta, which was a relief, but my first time going into town, I got that stupid bug where, I couldn't go in or leave the area and had to restart my game. My game has crashed at least a dozen times, but not as many as since I turned down the graphics, so I truly think there is something wrong with the ultra settings in this game. I don't know what the issue is, but I didn't have these issues in the beta either, so they had to have changed something since then. The game looks amazing at the highest graphics settings at 1440p, so I would like to play the game on that without having these stupid issues that shouldn't be happening. The server issues of the game were mainly near launch, but it's mostly smoothed out. It still happens every once in a while when there's a lot of people around or you go between zones and you switch layers. One other gripe I have is that there are bugs still, and this is another reason not to play hardcore. I've seen people lose 200 hours of gameplays just to a bug, and they have no way to appeal things in Diablo 4. So it's just rough out there if you want to play hardcore, and I tip my hat to you. Now, listen closely. If you've made it this far, there's one last thing I have to say. Everything in this review is about the base 1.0 version of the game, the release version. One thing that seems to be a benefit of this game is that it seems the devs are actually listening to the good player feedback. As of the latest patch, they have done some really good things that will only help the longevity of this game. With seasons starting soon, there could be hundreds of more hours in the works from our boys in blue. Time will only tell if this game becomes that fine aged wine or the cheese that we let cook for too long. Diablo 4 is a nice turnaround from the usual that I have been so used to when it comes to Blizzard. The game was fun, and that is truly what matters when it comes to video games these days. There are dozens to hundreds of hours of game time in this game to those who truly enjoy this kind of repetitive gameplay loop. The story was serviceable, with better visuals, sound, and gameplay from previous titles. The always online functions of this game at least does something, unlike in the previous version, Diablo 3. Not having seasons right off the bat makes me feel like they weren't really ready for the release and released the game before it was truly finished. If you're an ARPG fan, this is a good game and it will serve you well. You will have fun with this game. I was genuinely surprised with the quality of this game, and I think it does help improve the slimy name of Blizzard just a little bit. As long as you don't look at anything Overwatch related, just don't go there. My final score for this Blizzard game is an 86 out of 100. Fun, good game, but it could be better with just some basic inclusions to the game. There are, of course, way more things I could have gone into great detail about this game, but I covered most of what I think is important that you need to know before you go and buy this game, especially for a $70 game. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you all on the next one. Have a good one.